If you're playing Elden Ring and you have that itch to learn something new about the lore and the story, then you've come to the right place, as we're going to round up a few things about the lore that you may or may not know. But I just want to quickly say I am not a lore expert. This is going based on the item descriptions of different things, so I'm piecing together things that I think make sense and seem to be concrete, but please take it with a pinch of salt, as some of the lore can be put up to speculation, and again, I am no expert. But if you do want more videos like this one, then let us know in the comments down below and support the video by clicking like and subscribing to the channel. I'm Paradise Central, so let's start off by talking about the Black Knife and Godwyn the Golden. So Godwyn the Golden was a demigod and was the son of Queen Marika the Eternal and of Godfrey the First Elden Lord. In the Night of the Black Knives, he was assassinated by his stepsister Luna Princess Rani and her accomplices from the lands of Numen with the use of special weapons created with the Rune of Death that they stole from Malekith. Godwyn was of course the first demigod in the history of Elden Ring to die since the ascension of Marika to the throne of the Lands Between. The death of Godwyn was particularly devastating for his mother, Queen Marika, who quite possibly reacted to this by shattering the Elden Ring, which plunged the kingdom into chaos and without the guidance of the Greater Will. This is a huge event in terms of the story and the lore of Elden Ring, but what makes it so cool is that the Black Knife, the weapon that was imbued with the Rune of Death, is an actual item and weapon in-game that you can obtain and use that has a really good unique skill. We've done lots of videos on it already, but this is a weapon that you can use as part of your playthrough that played a major role in key characters in the actual game. The description of the weapon is that it's a dagger that once belonged to one of the assassins who murdered Godwyn the Golden on the Night of the Black Knives. A ritual was performed on this oddly misshapen blade, imbuing it with the power of the stolen Death Rune. Furthermore, the unique skill, the Blade of Death, unleashes the power of the Death Rune to fire off a blade-like projectile, which in addition to dealing immediate damage, reduces the target's max health and then causes a bleed-like effect that saps their health over time. So this weapon is not only a key part of the story and of major character deaths within the story, but it also is a weapon that we as a player can use that has the literal power of the Rune of Death that was stolen from Malekith in it, that we as a player can use in the unique ability. So I just really like this weapon for its significance and the fact that we have access to it as a player. And speaking of Godwyn and the Rune of Death and everything that goes into that, let's talk about Deathroot. Godwyn dying made him become the first of those who live in death. Ranni used the Death Rune to completely destroy his soul, but his body remained in undeath, and by destroying his soul, the spirit could not return to the Erdtree. His body was then laid to rest deep in the roots of the Great Tree, but it would eventually corrupt it, leading to Deathroot sprouting and spreading across the Lands Between, which caused others to also rise in undeath. These undead then worshipped Godwyn as the Prince of Death, and they believed that eventually he would return to them and lead them. The thing is, Deathroot is an item you can actually collect in-game from around the map, some of them at the end of catacombs that are deep underground where you can see the roots of the Great Tree spreading and spreading that Deathroot that's corrupting it. This could be a little worrying because the roots of the Great Tree spread far and wide, and it's believed that they aren't just contained within the Lands Between, but that is a bit of speculation. One thing that we do know is that from the Deathroot description in-game, it's a source that gives rise to those who live in death. The beast clergymen found in the bestial sanctum in the distant east collect and devour these roots. On the night of the dire plot, the stolen Death Rune enabled the first death of a demigod, which was Godwyn, and later the Rune of Death spread across the Lands Between throughout the underground roots of the Great Tree, sprouting in the form of this Deathroot. So from this we know that the Deathroot originates from Godwyn the Golden, who is now the Prince of Death and is essentially creating an undead army who worship him as it spreads throughout the roots of the Great Tree and brings rise to more undead. So there is an argument that perhaps could be made that if Godwyn could come back somehow, he would be a very powerful character in that he is the one who lives in death and has essentially got a wide network of Deathroot that is bringing more undead alive that worship him. This leads us into the next thing to talk about, which is Stormville Castle, because within Stormville Castle you can actually find the scary remains of an aspect of Godwyn's corpse that grows from Deathroot. It looks just like him, it's a giant scary face looking thing, it even bleeds when you attack it, But this could be explained by the fact that Deathroot grows from Godwyn, who is resting deep within the roots of the Great Tree. The Great Tree's roots obviously spread really far and wide, including to Stormville Castle, and that with the Deathroot spreading, Godwyn being the first demigod to die and the source of the Deathroot, it's not too far-fetched to think that perhaps the Deathroot actually grows in the image of Godwyn if it's left for long enough to develop. So if that is true, this could actually mean that different versions of Godwyn's corpse could start to form all over the Lands Between if they get that chance to develop fully. So if you haven't gone to see it already, you should travel here in Stormville Castle and check it out for yourself in-game. And next, I wanted to talk about the difference between the Great Tree and the Erd Tree. Both the Erd Tree and the Great Tree are two distinctly different trees, and there's 3 items that I want to reference here to talk about these points. The root resin item has a description that says the roots of the Great Tree were once linked to those of the Erd Tree, or so they say, and it is the reason the catacombs are built around Great Tree roots. This is extra interesting because we know you get Deathroot from certain catacombs with the roots at the end that you can visibly see, so it all links together because we know that Godwyn is laid to rest in the roots of the Great Tree that spread to these catacombs, where the Deathroot spreads from Godwyn that we can then get for our character in-game. There's also the description of the Crucible Tree Helmet, which is the helmet of the Crucible Knights who served Godfrey, the first Elden Lord. The Great Tree ornamentation is the Knight Celeria's mark, displayed also by her men, and it holds the power of the Crucible of Life. There's also the Celeria's tree weapon, which is a weapon of one of the 2 honoured as foremost among the Crucible Knights. The primordial form of the Erd Tree is close in nature to life itself, and this spear modelled on its crucible is imbued with ancient holy essence. So it could be that pre-Erd Tree, the Great Tree was the crucible, and then the Erd Tree grew when the Elden Beast arrived in the Lands Between, and the roots spread down and interlinked with that of the Great Tree, which, as we know, the Great Tree is infected by Deathroot from Godwyn the Golden, now Godwyn the Prince of Death. Again guys, I am no lore expert, so please let me know in the comments if I got anything wrong, and we can all learn together as a community, or just put in the comments if you have any really cool, interesting lore facts that you would like to share down below. If you did enjoy this video, make sure to click like and subscribe down below to show support for the video. I don't normally do lore things, so I hope you guys enjoyed this one. We have videos on the screen now that we think you will really enjoy if you did enjoy this one, so definitely don't miss out and click the videos on screen now.